Check it out, this is a brand new film that you can see right now over on Amazon Prime. It is a remake, or I guess it's a reimagining from a film way back when Patrick Swayze was in the lead role. Now, I have not seen that. I have not read the original book that it originated from, so I honestly knew nothing about it going in. Promotional materials made me think, oh, it's a UFC boxing film, but that's not exactly the case. It ultimately stars Jake Gyllenhaal as Dalton, an ex-UFC fighter who is very, very intimidating. Just the sight of him alone sends people running. Whatever happened in Dalton's life before this, which everybody seems to know, but the audience doesn't yet. So seeing his intimidation, he's actually requested to be a bouncer at a roadhouse that is frequently visited by mafia members, gangsters, and the sort, causing a scene, and it's all specifically because they are after this roadhouse for some nefarious reason, which again, the audience has no idea why yet. And so Jake Gyllenhaal's character has to basically fight his way to the top to help this roadhouse survive, essentially. But obviously his rough background might get in the way here and there because he's a little bit messed up in the head. He's one of those characters that doesn't necessarily care if he lives or dies. He's not necessarily suicidal, but he's basically the man without fear, and because he has no fear, he's really, really intimidating. He doesn't care what he does to you, and he's incredibly good at fighting. This film is almost filled to the brim with fight sequences that are high octane, shot really well, edited really well, and honestly, there was some really good choreography in there as well. Truth be told, that's kind of the reason why I watched this. I didn't really pay attention too much to the trailer, but I did happen to notice the fight sequences, which look like a lot of fun. In fact, I would actually liken the fight sequences to kung fu movies in the past, where basically you have a paper-thin plot, but it's just enough of a plot to explain why everybody seems to know how to fight extremely well. And yes, while there are weapons in the film, such as knives and guns, they don't seem to hold a candle to fists and feet. Because look, bringing a knife to a Fists of Fury fight, that's just a joke. Opposite to Jake Gyllenhaal, one of the villains, because there's quite a few villains, but one of the crazy, deranged, off-the-rails villains is an actual UFC fighter named Connor McNally, McIntosh, McFly, McDonald's. I might have forgotten the name, but he's an actual UFC fighter. This is his first acting credit. How did he do? He actually did pretty well. He didn't do phenomenally, but for a first role from a UFC fighter, I was mostly impressed by his performance. This was a good role to start his acting career on, and plus it was really fun to watch him fight Jake Gyllenhaal and have Jake Gyllenhaal actually have a leg up on this guy. That was actually pretty thrilling. However, the movie's plot, like I did say before, it's a little bit paper thin. It's boring at times because the film doesn't really care to invest that much into a story that has emotional weight for you to care about. It seemed to want to focus a lot more on providing the audience with these fight sequences that, in all actuality, are great. They have almost a sped up quality to them, much like the Bourne Identity films or some of the films in the MCU, or maybe the Crank films with Jason Statham. And it's great, but all this technical stuff that they throw into these fight sequences, they never use the same techniques when shooting all the slower stuff. So all the slower stuff has bland and cinematically monotonous and just typical run-of-the-mill cinematography, editing, lighting, all that, for all the boring stuff, which does not help the film whatsoever. Now look, it's not a stretch to say that audience members are probably watching this movie for the fight sequences and nothing else. And it's not even the fact that they're shallow. The movie itself only really cared about the fight sequences too. And I say that based off of the paper-thin plot, where they just threw enough in there to explain the fighting, but that's all they really cared about was the fighting. That's a problem. Because yeah, I mean, the fight sequences are great, but I cannot get over how boring everything else is. Also, Jake Gyllenhaal, obviously a great actor. I don't think there's anything he's ever done that I've disliked. Usually, no matter what he does, to a degree, I enjoy it. Same thing here, the fight sequences. But I will say that I don't necessarily believe he was right for the role. He plays what he often plays, which is this soft-spoken, nice guy, often has a slight sense of humor, which is great, but that doesn't exactly work for his character, who's supposed to be kind of brooding, not really caring about life, not really caring about what he does to other people. Somebody that has a past trauma that they just can't get over, like they have PTSD over it. That's not what I'm getting out of Jake Gyllenhaal in this film. He does a great job with the fight sequences. He's ripped, he's pleasant to see on screen, but I didn't sense his character in his performance. I can't speak to the original film because I haven't seen it. I can't necessarily see Patrick Swayze doing any better, but I do believe that if he needed to, Patrick Swayze would be able to switch his charisma from lighthearted and fun to absolutely serious and imposing and almost scary to a degree. I could actually see that. Jake Gyllenhaal has a range, but it's not that type of range. So I didn't fully believe him in the role. His choreography and the fighting was fantastic, but his motivation behind everything is a little bit So in general, what would I score this? Probably a solid C. The score itself would be probably better if the plot was stronger or had a more of an emotional weight behind it, had more of a reason for you to watch it. Instead, I don't think anybody watching this is gonna really care that much about the characters in the film. I think the characters are going to be mostly forgettable for most people. I think that the story is also going to be mostly forgettable for everybody that watches. Now, I could be wrong. You could watch this and absolutely love it, and for sure, tell me in the comments down below if that is true. But something about the film just tells me that people aren't going to love it to the degree of wanting to add it to their collection, wanting to watch it over and over and over again, and certainly not love the story because there's nothing there. It is one of the thinnest plots that I've seen in recent years, and probably one of the thinnest plots that I've seen from a Jake Gyllenhaal film. I'm curious to see what the original film did personally. I don't know if I'll ever get around to it in the nearby future, but I am curious based off of the foundation of the story, which seems to hold a little bit of weight, but it does technically depend on how you approach that. Anyways, guys, let me know what you thought about this film if you have seen it. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on if you saw the original one and this and how you compare the two, which one's better, which one's worse. Is there anything about this film that improves upon the original? Let me know, and as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review, and until then, peace out.